Very sorry for the delay, but I'm going to just quickly start by acknowledging that the work for my project's been undertaken on the lands of the Wurundjeri and Boonwurrung people of the Kulin Nation. And I just want to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and extend the respect to any First Nations people present. And also to acknowledge that the fieldwork for this project was conducted across Turtle Island in so-called North America on lands that remain unceded. And to acknowledge that across this land and water, sovereignty was never ceded and the struggle against colonisation is ongoing. My research explores transnational iterations of queer Yiddishkeit in global and local contexts with a view to understanding the queer futures of Yiddish. For this paper, I'll take a theoretical starting point with Jose Esteban Munoz's work on queer futurity and argue that this offers a generative way of thinking through queer Yiddishkeit and I believe indeed the future of Yiddish language and culture generally. So a quick note on my methods. Autoethnographic film, I'm not the first one to do it. Plenty of people are doing it, but it's basically combining critical autoethnography, which is a self-reflective and reflexive practice that builds on ethnography to more explicitly insert the ethnographer into the experience of the research, and critically includes a critical engagement with theory. Stacey Holman-Jones writes, we return to the scene of theory, trying to work out what we know in our bodies. And that's really key here. And from an ethnographic film tradition, my filming is handheld, it's largely observational, with focus on reflexive methods through filming and editing, and highlighting basically the constructedness of the film as a text. It's practice-based research or practice as research. So, queer futurity. For this paper, I make use of Munoz's queer theory of futurity put forward in Cruising Utopia, the then and there of queer futurity. In this manuscript, Munoz responds to the de-identification of queer theory in the early 2000s. He asserts that queerness does not equal no future, as Edelman and others did, but rather that the future is queerness's domain. He insists, we've never been queer, yet queerness exists for us as an ideality that can be distilled from the past and used to imagine a future. The future is queerness's domain. He goes on to write, queerness is also performative because it is not simply a being, but a doing and for and towards the future. Queerness is essentially about the rejection of a here and now and an insistence on potentiality or concrete possibility for another world. In this way, we can use queer futurity to imagine a future for queer Yiddishkeit, to think through the potentials for queer Yiddish future, and perhaps the future of Yiddish language and culture more broadly. A quick note on queer Yiddishkeit. For this audience, I won't focus on a definition of what that is because I think it's probably, known in the room, but instead focus on my methods and sort of ways of that I'm analysing my fieldwork at the moment. But here we have sort of various examples of queer Yiddishkeit, mostly ephemera from the past 4 decades, including on the right there some examples of contemporary ephemera. Some of my participants are there. And here's some shots from around the world in my fieldwork. So I undertook a lot of fieldwork in North America last summer, about 6 months ago, at YIVO in New York City and Western Mass in the Pacific Northwest and CLES Canada, which I'll go on to talk a bit more about. And my fieldwork's continuing at the moment in Melbourne, specifically in community language classes here. So, CLES Canada. I'm using queer futurity to explore CLES Canada and specifically mine and other queer Jews' experiences of it as a space, a place and a time of queer Yiddish futurity. It's an annual klezmer festival in Quebec. I'm sure most people in the room know, but one of the largest global klezmer and Yiddish culture festivals in the world. It was the first time it was in person since 2019, the year that I went, and that was the first time I attended. And the week consists of lessons, workshops, performances that are programmed, but much of the performance and participation is impromptu, unprogrammed, improvised and jammed. In some ways, CLES Canada is a place out of time and space and can be understood as a diasporic or transnational space. Even though it's largely North American, there are attendees from around the world, including myself. And although it's not a truly queer space for a number of reasons, there are potentials to read it through a lens of queer futurity. I would argue. Here we can turn to scholar Zohar Weiman-Kelman, who offers a valuable blueprint for understanding Yiddish culture making through a queer theory, and specifically a queerly temporal lens. In their 2018 manuscript, Queer Expectations, A Genealogy of Jewish Women's Poetry, Weiman-Kelman responded to Munoz's call to queer futurity, writing in terms of their own project and employing queer expectancy to read a lineage of Jewish women's poetry. Weiman-Kelman suggests a concept of queer transmission and writes that this allows for multiple and simultaneous links, not only backward and forward, but every which way at any given time. This model refigures the image of the singular continuous chain within Jewish tradition, endowing it with new spatiotemporal movements and multiplicity. Following from Weiman-Kelman, I take this concept and suggest that Yiddish culture making and enacting in a space-time like Claes Canada is an example of queer and specifically queer Yiddish transmission. And here we can return to Munoz, which I continue to do. In Cruising Utopia, integral to his defense of queer futurity is his call to hope. He writes, "It is my belief that minoritarian subjects are cast as hopeless in a world without utopia. This is not to say that hope is the only modality of emotional recognition that structures belonging. Sometimes shame, disgust, hate, and other negative emotions bind people together. But I dwell on hope because I wish to think about futurity, and hope, I argue, is the emotional modality that permits us to access futurity par excellence." I want to animate and build on these ideas integral to queer futurity through an edited clip I made of the inaugural Bracha Shmiras performance at Claes Canada Summer Retreat of 2022.
Glaive, this just has to be reversed. Ich lebe noch als. Noch als.
Ich sag dir zu, ich lebe noch als. Wenn ich bin an dir, straight mein Kopf. Straight? Like straight to spin.
It's not really a bridge, is it? It's just an oh baby baby.
Yeah.
Just oh baby.
Oh, should we be saying oi baby baby during this
Oi
show?
baby baby.
You're talking about between the second chorus and the I must confess.
Yeah,
I need to go over
at the end of the second chorus,
Okay.
like hit me baby once, and we all go and just land on that and make it like pianissimo, make it like super quiet, right?
And
This is it. Hi, my name's Yael. I'm the choreographer of the piece. It's going straight to the final cut.
Hi, I'm Zimmel. I'm the music director for Bracha Shmiras. Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm the costume artistic director and one of the three in translation team.
Hi, I'm Michael Yashinsky. I'm a translation consultant. I haven't met Bracha yet. I'm really hoping to, but I'll be really nervous when I do.
Free bracha.
Free
Freiheit. Bracha Schmiers, yeah?
Hashtag free bracha, a blessing. I should note this was August last year, many months before the recent semi-viral TikTok Yiddish version of this song. So we did this ourselves. I was one of the 3 translation team along with Rachel and Michal and performed as Bracha Schmiers alongside Rachel and Bela. It was a 19-person production brought together in less than 24 hours as a non-programmed impromptu cabaret performance. It's campy, it's Jewy, it's Yiddish, it's klezmer, it's absurd, it's joyous, it's queer, it's even political. The ridiculous can be sublime, and there are some members of Bracha Schmiers in the audience today, so shout out to them. So I just want to return to Cruising Utopia and the question of queer futurity. Munyanos asks, how does one stage utopia? Which is to say, how do we enact utopia? Utopia is not prescriptive, it renders political blueprints of a world not quite here, a horizon of possibility, not a fixed schema. It is productive to think about utopia as flux, as a temporal disorganization, as a moment when the here and the now is transcended by a then and a there that could and indeed should be. That could be, that could have been, that can be, hashtag free bracha. Recently, I attended a dance performance by an Aboriginal dance company based here in Naarm in Melbourne. It was a performance of a new work that tells a traditional dreaming story from a community in New South Wales, but a story for which there was never a dance, or if there was, it had been lost through colonisation. But this new dance had become part of the traditional dreaming story and part of the community in New South Wales. And this new dance was queer in terms of mode, in terms of audience participation, and it even ended with a queer rave type ending. The choreographer spoke afterwards about his early career making work about loss, his family's loss of language and of culture. And he drew a distinction between that and the work he makes now, work that acknowledges the violence and loss that has happened, but that's able to make new culture, new and queer transmission, perhaps, towards a living culture. And this really resonated with me. I went and saw it just after I got back from Cles Canada, in terms of the potential of what a Yiddish space like Cles Canada can foster and what a group of queer Yiddishists can create together, and why a participatory and exploratory creative and research practice of autoethnographic film can not only document, but contribute to that culture. I'll finish there. I'm sorry about the technical difficulties at the beginning, but thank you for your time.